We're going to format this to grab the month number. And Relay has a format specifically. So with this example they have for February, I would just be looking for the number 2. That will give me the month number. Awesome. And then I'm going to add a rule that says only continue this workflow or end flow. Yeah, end this run. But actually, I want to continue it only if the month number is equal to the month I want the calendar event created in. So for now, we're going to leave it to 5 because today's date, is May. But if this were set to January, then this would only continue if it was in January. We would scrape the comptroller website in January, find the deadline for this year, and then create the corresponding calendar event. And as this automation runs every month, it will realize it's not January anymore and it will just stop. Okay. So we're going to hit done and hit save, or we can turn it on if I really wanted this to run, but we can also just start the test run and watch it run all the way through. So let's start the test. And it's doing its thing. Does anyone have any questions before we look at a slightly more advanced version of this? Okay. So the advanced version is a little more nuanced. And so we're not going to build it from scratch live, but I'm going to name this workflow. I'm going to talk through it because when I build automations, as somebody who's built a lot of automations in my business, at some point I'd created a lot of technical debt. And that automations were running and things were going on, but I wasn't exactly sure what was happening all the time. And so tracking what's going on, or the need for tracking, made me think a little bit differently about this problem and say, you know what? If I treat my automations and my AIs like teammates, I want to know when it's doing something. Maybe I don't need to know every single time it runs, but if something notable happens, I want to find out. And so this is a reimagined version of this workflow that takes the automation, and I'm using workflow and automation interchangeably, but it takes that automation and it reimagines it like a teammate. So what if I had a franchise tax tracker? And let's just, name that the teammate here. Its job is to track my franchise tax deadline. And so what I want it to do is keep an update of what it does in somewhere. And so I have a Google Sheet for that. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So here, when it runs, I want to know what it found. I want to know when it ran. I want to know what document, because thinking a little bit larger here, and maybe I have my filing tracker check multiple documents, but we're going to start with franchise tax. And so I want to know what filing it's looking at, any relevant deadlines associated with it, and then notes. Now it dawned on me that having this run once a month and generate the same information on the deadline doesn't make sense. The franchise tax deadline is not a moving target. However, the recent laws about the BOI report made me realize, there are things around some of these filings that do shift, they do change. And so if I was hiring somebody in my job to monitor, in my company to monitor this for me, I would expect them to tell me when things change, right? To send me notice if it thinks anything is important, but at minimum, at least let me have somewhere to go to see that, I hired you to give me updates. There's somewhere where the updates are. And if there's something urgent, tell me about it. Right. And so as I was putting this together, I said, let's figure out what it looks like to build this in Relay app. So turning our one-off automation into more of a team-like member. And so here we go. Same timeline.